teachers on Reddit. What is the most stupid answer someone has ever given on an exam? Just the other day, the question asked the learners to explain the myth in the passage. Answer: a myth is a female moth. And I just sort of looked at this answer for a while before realizing the extent of stupid answers. I am in a one-to-one school. Every student is issued an iPad, so I use a digital quiz that my students can type on. I can't remember what the question was, but I remember the student's answer. It was a pizza emoji. Actually, this is pretty smart since some database isn't prepared to store images. It could have been stored as a corrected text and tell the professor that he answered correctly. Nope. It was from an EL student who just didn't understand the question. It was basically his version of a shrug of eye. That was the point when I realized that perhaps he didn't understand quite as much English as he let on. College English professor here. Though the dumbest exam answer I ever saw came from one of my fellow TAs in a huge lecture hall film class back when I was still a grad student. For some unfathomable reason, one of his students decided to answer the written final exam in the form of a poem that didn't begin to answer any of the exam questions, nor did it reference any of the movies we watched in class, which you had to pick from for the answers, but instead just threw in references to whatever random movies he could work into his rhyme scheme. And even setting all that aside, this student still had zero talent for poetry. I don't know what the hell he was thinking, but my friend decided to generously give the student a 20% for bothering to show up and at least write something down. I think the guy knew he was going to fail or that he knew nothing on the topic, so he decided that F it, I'll write a poem. Maybe I'll get a mark or two. Beats an empty sheet, I guess. My mum was a teacher. She was doing a geography quiz with year 7/8s, 6/7th grade. One of the questions was what was the biggest island until Australia was discovered. One kid answered trick question. Australia isn't real. Australia was the biggest island, even if it haven't been discovered yet, or if you don't consider it an island because it's a continent. Greenland was and still is the biggest island. It is a trick question, but not for the reason that student thought. One of my teachers said that as they were marking year 12 finals, someone responded to an essay question with "I don't know, but here's a picture of a bird," and then drew a really beautiful bird. Former teacher here. This is actually a decent strategy. I had to use a particular grading rubric. Under that rubric, this answer would get an F, or 51%. A blank answer would get 0%. Stupid? Yes, but them's were the rules. So draw your birds, people. You just never know. I got a crab once, on a physics exam. Not an answer, but they raised their hand to ask a question. The hand with all the answers written on it. I teach 3rd grade. This was more funny than stupid. At least he tried. Fill in the blank section of a test about Michigan history. The question was, what is the oldest city in Michigan? There were 3 blanks. The student wrote Detroit. Correct answer was Sault Ste. Marie. My dad once told me about one of his students complaining she missed a point because the topic of the question wasn't covered in class. The question: can you get pregnant from a handshake? He was teaching freshman med students. Not a teacher, but when grading a quiz, we graded each other's. On South Africa in world history, the girl that I was grading said that Africa was a country in South America. How are some people this stupid? Not a teacher. One time I didn't study at all for a test. I left almost all the answers blank. The very last question was the only one I got marks for. The question was, what is a haiku? Please define and provide an example. My haiku was, I have failed this test. I should have studied harder. I hate myself, man. My teacher wrote for sure, and I got full marks. I studied for the rest of the tests that year. Not a teacher, but my friend drew a picture of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as art homework when we were meant to be sketching rocks. In kindergarten we were asked to draw emotions, a laughing face, an angry face, etc. When they asked to draw a sob, I drew a car, specifically my dad's sob. I've had several pleading answers, saying they haven't got a clue, but please can I give them some marks. My husband once wrote an apology in his religious education essay. He said he knew he wasn't going to pass and he was sorry the examiner had to read his paper. No, he did not pass. I've got my final English exam next week, and one of the people who marks those exams gave us a lecture on what examiners do and don't like. To quote her directly on the pleading for marks, Oh my god, I'm sorry this is so bad, but my boyfriend broke up with me and my goldfish died, so please just be a little bit nice. Yeah, I don't care. I've like 200 of these essays to mark, and you just wasted 10 seconds of my time. So now I'm not going to plead for marks. Not that I was in the first place. My friend's sister once wrote birth control makes women smell bad so men won't have us with her in her biology exam. Sounds like her parents told her that lie. That sounds like a fantastic way to have a teenage mother. Took a world religions class in high school, got a test question. What is the term for hostility and discrimination against Judaism? Response is antisemitism, of course. But teacher in a tired voice said someone answered Christianity. I mean, from a historical perspective he's not wrong. Hilarious though, when I was at school, religious education was a compulsory subject at GCSE level. I don't know if it still is. I was predicted to get an A, because I'm not entirely stupid and it's not like RE is hard. Well, the final big question, worth a lot of marks, asked us to describe the traditions and meanings in a Jewish wedding. Do you think I had a clue? No. Did I even remember studying anything remotely about Judaism? No. Am I religious myself? No. Was Judaism a big thing around my way? No. I honest to God didn't have any clue. And speaking freely, I still don't. I was sure everything up to that point was right, so I thought, what can I do? I can't sit here doing nothing with over half an hour to spare. So I wrote an apology saying I didn't remember learning this particular religious ceremony, but I'd love to tell you about a Hindu wedding. Then wrote everything I knew about that. Came away with a C, which I was so happy with considering I didn't answer 50% of the paper correctly. It was my worst GCSE result and my mum asked me what happened. And I just said I hate religion and she pulled a face like fair enough. I can provide something stupid I did myself multiple times. Me and my friends had this meme, I guess, where the answer to every question we didn't know would either be 6, 42 or Jesus. One day we had a science exam which I didn't do anything for, so I said screw it and answered all questions with one of these 3 answers. Fun thing is that, for one question I filled in 42 and it was actually within the margin of error. Answer was 43, so I got 1 point for that, bumping my total grade from a 1 to a 1.1. I can understand Jesus and 42, but what about 6? I honestly don't remember where it came from originally. It just became a meme in our friend group. I'm not a teacher, but I know someone who spelled their own name wrong on an exam. I remember being so nervous for an exam once that I forgot what year it was and which grade I was in. Nerves can mess you up. Yep. First time traveling overseas, I filled out the customs form and was pulled aside by the customs guy and questioned why I wrote Caucasian in the nationality box. I honestly didn't. My brain was just shut down after the 14 hours in the air. Lol. Obligatory, not a teacher. But before I had my history teacher, who liked to put funny answers on tests that were clearly wrong. She had put Apu Nahasapima Petilin among historical Babylonian figures on a test, and people actually picked the answer unironically. Studying is important, folks. I took an astronomy class. If I remember, the question was what is dark matter? One of the answers was something like the matter that helps produce the dark side of the force. I'm sure someone picked that answer. Some students just can't make intelligent guesses no matter how many times you try to teach them the process of elimination, etc. I put answers like Zanu the magic dancing monkey, and every single time someone will choose Zanu. Every single time. When you ask them why, they say that they didn't know the answer, so they guessed blindly. Which planet in our solar system contains the highest concentration of toxic gas? Uranus. Also not a teacher, but in 7th grade I took a grammar test. It was 10 questions, 3 points apiece. I missed every question and forgot to put my name on the test. I was given a 3/30. I mean, I wouldn't put my name on work like that either. Academically dumb. But in the real world, being self-aware can be important. B. Not a teacher. But when I was in primary school, I was so lazy during a maths test that I didn't recheck my finished script despite having 10 minutes to go and the teacher's constant reminders. Turns out I had accidentally flipped 2 pages of the exam script together and left the middle 2 pages completely blank. I teach English as a foreign language in China. Learning about professions. Model answer. Q. What do you want to be? A. I want to be a. Students answer. I want to be a potato. We all dream of different things. Do you mock the aspirations to tuberhood? It was supposed to be a lengthy subjective answer on a particular concept, and instead, the student starts with a line of concept, answers a story based on a movie and ends with adding another conceptual line in the end. I think this is a common trick. Make the first and last lines relevant and fill the middle with garbage assuming nobody will read it. Imagine reading 50-100 essays per class on a weekly basis. A lot of skimming involved. I once snuck in a recipe for chocolate cake to see if a teacher was even reading the papers. He did not notice. I got an A. Not a teacher, but in the final exam at school, one particularly lazy kid wrote his name on the front so it would count, then proceeded to fall asleep on and drool all over his exam. I wanna know what happened to the kid's test. Asking for a friend. Well, I don't know about that, but in season 1 episode 3 of Boy Meets World, Alan lets Corey stay up late to watch a baseball game, and he fell asleep on the test. One memorable part of dialogue went like this. Emma, Feeney, the test is done. Mr. Matthews, Corey, how'd I do? Emma, Feeney, looks like an A. Corey, I got an A. Mr. Feeney, no. A is the only answer you put down before you slipped into your coma, Corey, so what did I get? Mr. Feeney, well, you answered one question out of 40, and you got it wrong. What grade do you think I'm going to give you, Corey? Can it be found at the beginning of the word for tutor? Mr. Feeney, C. Senor. Anyway, Alan and Mr. Feeney argued about a makeup test, with Feeney deciding not to grant one. In the end, both understood each other's perspective, and Alan no longer woke his kid up for baseball so he'd be ready for school, and Feeney granted the makeup test, remembering the hurt of his own dad never doing anything with him as a kid. The moral for Corey was that sometimes there's no right answer in life. There's going to be a moral gray area. I was teaching AP Environmental Science. I had a kid in the class who really shouldn't have been, but it was the only science that fit into his schedule, and our counselors were morons. The test was about water management, and the question itself was about wastewater treatment. Something like identify 2 materials which would be removed from wastewater by primary treatment. The kid, who was an 11th grader, said diapers and doo-doo. We assume he meant diapers and fesses. I really hope so. Anyway. In India, one of my friends put, Gay Hamari Mata Hai, Mujko Kuk Nahinata Hai. Basically, cow is my mother. I don't know Hinduism 100. Technically not an answer, but for the AP test, and possibly many other standardized tests, my classmate took advantage of the rule where the grader has to disregard anything the student crosses out with a single line. After finishing his essay for the AP US History exam, he wrote an elaborate story of a unicorn and its essential role in the development of the US and crossed it out with a single line. I did something like this for my AP Psych exam, except I wrote the entirety of All Star by Smash Mouth and then crossed it out. Not a teacher, but my dad was. He taught French. Best translation ever from French to English, as part of a longer text, not just this sentence. Elle marche along de la rue avec un maidlot barbu. She walked down the street with a bearded mattress. We can only imagine the look on the poor kid's face when they wrote that, trying desperately to figure out what the hell was going on. Mattress? Mattress? WTF? But that's what it says. Matterless maidlot. I used to teach English to French kids. One of them, who was actually one of my best pupils, really smart and hard-working girl, wrote a story about a very scary castle in which there were bald smiled. Now guess what a bald smiled actually is. Hint. It's an animal. Not on an exam, but an answer in class. Asked the class what is dangerous about a nuclear reactor exploding near a populated area. Kid's hand shoots up and I call on him. Is it because it makes sandwiches? All the other kids turn around and stare at him. I ask him to clarify and he sheepishly says I dunno. So, for a second I just thought that was the answer. Not a teacher, but I had to write an English test essay on our topic for the semester. Sadly though, I forgot we had the test, so I forgot all my notes. So for an hour straight I just wrote I am a fish over and over again. I somehow managed to convince my friend to write the same thing on her leftover papers so that I wouldn't be the only stupid one. Got told this from one of my teachers. The teacher had to mark a history exam about World War II, and one of the questions was about why Hitler did what he did. I don't think she was prepared to see the answer of, Hitler killed the Jews because he didn't have enough money to buy regular meat, so killed the Jews for some free meals. She also had to mark a maths exam and every student in the room wrote the wrong answer for a question. She was laughing for weeks after that when a kid wrote an essay about Macbeth in their maths mock exam. The kid left the questions blank and wrote about Macbeth in a maths exam. That kid had already finished his English exams as well. 1970s. In my sister's science class, one question was, what is red tide? Another kid's answer was, it's the influx of Chinese communists in Southeast Asia. Teacher gave him a -2 on that one for being a smartass. Not a teacher, but I used to tutor high school kids. This kid needed help with an upcoming English literature test, so I spent 2 hours explaining Chaucer's Canterbury Tales to him. Then I started quizzing him. I had a printout with mock questions and I started with the easiest one. In the Canterbury Tales, where are the pilgrims going? Answer, to Santiago de Compostela. He was dead serious too. I believe this explains why I did not go into teaching. I had a friend who was really smart in college. He even did exercise courses in game theory and contract law and economics. He had an exam where he didn't study that much, but at the bottom he posted a picture of Gandalf with the text, "You shall not pass." He was 100% sure he wouldn't pass, but got an Hail Mayo. I've seen both his assignment and the grade, because I didn't believe him. Mayo. Not a teacher, but I once write entire lyrics of Let It Go, Frozen, in both English and my language. It seems like not that stupid if it's not very important exam. It was an exam that selects students to go to international competition. I, being almost 14 at the time, got call out in front of entire hall in university. The professor scolded me that I waste very important opportunities plus waste the budget of government, and said that I was the reason that my country didn't develop. Lol.